Yes, morning, speaker and colleagues. Can hear you guys well.
Okay, John, are we ready? Okay. All right, members. Excuse me. Good morning to all our viewers out there. Welcome to your house, members. I now call this fifth day, second regular session to order. Please rise for a moment of silent prayer. Thank you, members. I now recognize the clerk to call the roll.
Representative Ada, Representative Atal,
Present.
Representative Selena Babauta,
Present.
Representative Sheila Babauta,
Present.
Representative Joel Komatsu,
Gaya.
Representative Vicente Komatsu,
Present.
Representative Damapan,
Stiga.
Representative Flores,
Present.
Representative Guerrero,
Stiga.
Representative Lizama,
Present.
Representative Magofnia, Representative Manglonia,
Present.
Representative Probes,
Present.
Representative Christina Sablan, Representative John Paul Sablan,
Stiga.
Representative St. Nicholas,
Present.
Representative Staffler,
Present.
Representative Mr. Speaker,
Present.
Representative Yang Tamay,
Yangi.
Representative Yumo,
Present.
Mr. Speaker, 19 members are present and 1 member is absent.
Thank you, clerk. With 19 present, that constitutes a quorum. Representative Tina Sablan is hereby excused. We now move down to item number 2, public comments. Please proceed to the podium for any public comments and state your name and the entity you represent. Looks like we have none for today. Before we move down to item number 3, I'd like to recognize the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And so we're in line with the House rules. I offer a motion to suspend Rule 3, Section 6, so that the House amends its agenda to include unnumbered bills, resolutions, and communication not filed with the clerk office to 72 hours in advance. So moved.
A motion has been made to suspend pertinent rules by the floor leader and has been seconded. Any discussion? Ready? Clerk, please call the roll.
Representative Ada? Representative Atal?
Yes.
Representative Selena Babauta?
Ungan.
Representative Sheila Babauta?
Yes.
Representative Joel Komatsu?
Ungan.
Representative Vicente Komatsu?
Yes.
Representative Damapan?
Ungan.
Representative Flores?
Yes.
Representative Guerrero?
Ungan.
Representative Lizama?
Yes.
Representative Magofnia?
Yes.
Representative Manglonia?
Yes.
Representative Probes?
Yes.
Representative John Paul Sablan?
Ungan.
Representative St. Nicholas?
Yes.
Representative Staffler?
Yes.
Representative Yang Tamay?
Over.
Representative Yumo? Mr. Speaker?
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, all 19 members present voted yes.
Thank you, clerk. With 19 members voting yes, the pertinent rules are hereby suspended. We now move down to item number 3, and I recognize the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Under item 3, we have 2 journals for adoption. First one is third day, second regular session journal dated September 23rd, 2021, and fourth day, second regular session journal, October 1st, 2021.
Thank you, clerk. I now recognize the floor leader for the proper motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'll offer a motion to adopt third day, second regular session journal dated September 23, 2021. So moved.
A motion has been made to adopt third day, second regular session journals dated September 23rd, 2021, and has been seconded. Any discussion? Ready? All in favor to adopt the journal, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. The journal is hereby adopted. Floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And last on our journals, I offer a motion to adopt fourth day, second regular session journal dated October 1st, 2021. So moved.
Thank you, floor leader. A motion has been made to adopt fourth day, second regular session journal dated October 1st, 2021, and has been seconded. Any discussion? Ready? Okay. All in favor to adopt the journal, please say aye. All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. Journal is hereby adopted. Thank you, members. We now move down to introduction of bills, and I'd like to recognize myself. Introducing House Bill 22-82 to adopt the village delimitation and name master map for Saipan as the sole village delimitation and name master map of Saipan, and to provide for the office of the mayor of Saipan to be the primary custodian for maintaining and preserving the master map, and for the Department of Commerce Central Statistics Division to be the secondary custodian, and for other purposes, introduced by myself, and it is open for co-sponsorship. And this bill will be referred to the committees of NR, Natural Resources, and Commerce and Tourism. Thank you, members. I now recognize Representative Leila Staffler.
Thank you, Speaker. I am introducing HB 2283 to enact a whistleblower protection provision for respective employees reporting on prohibited personnel practices and for other purposes, pre-filed by myself and others, and open to anybody else who would like to co-sponsor. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Leila Staffler. House Bill 22-83 will be referred to the Committee on JGO. I now recognize Representative Floor Leader Ralph Yumo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'll offer House Bill for introduction, House Bill 22-84 to repeal and reenact 2 CMC subsection 4323 and 2 CMC subsection 4324C to mandate the Department of Public Lands to review all past and pending claims and to grant such title to qualified persons and for other purposes. The bill is offered by myself and several others, and I offer the for any sponsors. Thank you.
Thank you, Floor Leader. House Bill 22-84 will be referred to the Committee on Natural Resources. Any more House bills to be introduced? None? Okay, we move down to House local bills, and I recognize the Floor Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'm now introducing House Local Bill 22-26 to authorize, establish, and regulate casino gambling within the 3rd Senatorial Districts, filed by myself, and also offering for other members to sign on. Thank you.
Thank you, Floor Leader. That's House Local Bill is on this now. I now recognize Vice Speaker Blas Jonathan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Formally introducing to the House Local Bill number 22-27 to appropriate $4 million from the fees collected pursuant to Public Law 20-10 and for other purposes, introduced by myself and several others, and I welcome all members from the 3rd Senatorial District to co-sponsor. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Vice Speaker. Any other House local bills to be introduced this morning? None? Ready. Okay, we now move down to item number 5, introduction of resolutions, and I recognize Leader Representative Angel Demapan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This time, I'd like to introduce House Resolution 22-12 to honor and commend the CNMI Wildland Fire Crew 36 for their courageous actions and sacrifices in fighting the California wildfires. Pre-filed by myself and several others, but if there are no objections, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to offer this under Committee of the Whole.
No objections.
Thank you, Leader Angel Demapan, for that offer. House Resolution 22-12 will be placed on calendar for action today. Any other resolutions? None? We have none under House Joint Resolutions, concurrent, and commemorative. We now move down to Item number 6, messages from the governor, and I recognize the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Under item 6, messages from the governor, we have Governor's Communication 22-78 through 22-88.
Thank you, clerk. Any discussion under message from the governor? I recognize Representative Leila Staffler.
Thank you, Speaker. I would like to just comment on Governor Communication 22-82 regarding his support for the Senate Bill 22-5 to establish a behavioral health professional scholarship. I just wanted to put on record that we have gone over this in our committee. There were additional concerns and questions about the timeline for returning students who, once they graduate, what would be appropriate with respect to addressing one of the scholarship issues. We are still receiving comments from the different entities we have requested from. But I do plan to hold a education meeting on November 19th, and it is already on the calendar, and we will continue to address this. And I really urge and hope the agencies who are out there that we requested these comments from, if they could please make sure that we get them in time so that they will be considered during our deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Staffler. I now recognize Representative Lipan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is to regarding Governor's Communication 22-88. I want to thank the committees, both houses, for their diligent work to pass this. Now, DPL can collect those money that we're losing with this issues that we're having with encroachment. And I have to give kudos to the chair for natural resources of the House for working with DPL on this. And with that, thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative Lipan Guerrero. I now recognize Representative Patrick San Nicolas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the Governor's Communication 22-84, I would like to thank the Governor for signing House Local Bill 22-21 D1 to appropriate 1 million of the casino license fee collected for Second Senatorial District pursuant to Public Law 20-10 for other purposes into law. So, local law. So, I would like to thank you. Mr.
Thank
Speaker.
you. You're welcome. Anybody else under Governor's Communications or messages from recognized Chairman Donald Manglonia?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before we move any further, can I request for recess?
Short recess. Before we went on recess, Representative Donald Manglonia had the floor. So I recognize Chairman Manglonia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, Mr. Speaker and colleagues, yesterday the committee discussed the governor's communication 22-80. And that is informing the House that he signed into law and line item vetoed in parts House Bill number 22-74 HD3 SD1 CCS1, which is the fiscal year 2022 Budget Act. This was received October 1st, which means we have until November 30th to take any necessary actions. And so with that, colleagues and members, we found that it is crucial that we continue to support programs and ensure that the monies that we had appropriated are protected so as to not disrupt the operations of the agencies, as well as to ensure that departments and agencies are properly funded to carry out the services it provides to the community. Now, according to Article 2, Section 7C, a bill or an item, section, or part of a bill vetoed by the governor may be reconsidered by the legislature. The legislature shall have 60 days from the receipt of the governor's veto message in the House of origin of the vetoed bill, item, section, or part of a bill to reconsider the vetoed legislation. The committee had identified 3 provisions in which we would like to override. Just to give you a brief background into those provisions, I'd like to turn your attention to Section 601. Now, this section prohibits the payment of utilities of personal residences of the governor, lieutenant governor, and presiding officers of the legislature. Now, if you followed the JGO hearings, the committee has published utility records which indicates excessive use of water and power. And now, while the governor and lieutenant governor are entitled to government housing, paying the utilities of their personal residences in lieu of providing them housing still goes against the statute. And just because past administrations have done it, that doesn't mean we shall continue this trend. And so for those reasons, the committee has chosen this as one of the vetoed items that we would like to override. Another provision that that the governor had line item vetoed is Section 704C. And this is the feasibility study of the gaming industry by OPD. Now, the committee, through its budget deliberations, colleagues had worked closely with OPD to come up with language that is in this provision. While the governor states that this should be left to the Commonwealth Casino Commission, we felt that they may not have the capacity to conduct the study, and therefore OPD was best suited to perform this study. But just to elaborate a little more on this, I'd like to refer to Representative Ed Probst, the chair for the Gaming Committee.
Recognize Representative Probst.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Chairman Manglonia. I appreciate this time to discuss this Section 704C. I want to, if we can pull up, just so that we are fully aware of what we're discussing, OPD section, sorry, let me pull this out. 1 second. If we can, Title 1, Division 2, Section 20174, Office of Planning and Development and the powers. Could we pull that up on the screen for everybody to see, please? So if you look at this, with regard to OPD and its powers, in the execution of its responsibilities under this article, the office is authorized to perform these following functions. And 1 second. Is it downloading? Oh. Oh, thank you. Thank you, John. Thank you, John. You're the man. Okay. So if you look at this, letter C states under studies, it says studies to conduct or cause to be conducted investigations, studies, surveys, research, and analysis relating to physical, human, social, and economic development of the CNMI, and to publish the results thereof. So, absolutely, within the powers of OPD, they certainly do have this, and it only makes sense. I feel that that it's very clear in its powers. Um, I also want to state a few other reasons, and if you will allow me, um, first and foremost, we need an independent, professional, and impartial study of the market feasibility and regulatory structure for the gaming industry for the CNMI. You know, my dear colleagues, Mr. Speaker, we're in this mess we're in right now with respect to IPI because the gaming industry started off wrong from the very beginning in virtually every respect, including the way the Saipan Casino Act was written, the selection of IPI without proper due diligence, the ever-changing terms of the license agreement. How many changes did we have in that? And of course, the lax enforcement of our laws. We have an opportunity right now to learn from history and finally do this right once IPI's license is finally revoked. And this study is a critical first step in the right direction. I'd like to add that the Office of Planning and Development is the most appropriate agency to contract with a qualified firm to conduct this study. OPD is in the process of finalizing a comprehensive economic development plan for the Commonwealth. And that plan currently is silent on the future of the CNMI's gaming industry. They agree that a consideration of the future of gaming should be part of this planning process. And it is important to note that NVA's own 10-year tourism recovery strategy also says absolutely zero, nada, esar, wala, nothing about the future of gaming in our tourism plan. OPD is already mandated by law to conduct such research and development studies to help guide the CNMI's planning process and to assist policymakers, we policymakers, in our decision making. OPD is more than capable of creating the scope of work and RFP and contract with a qualified firm and has already begun reviewing similar gaming feasibility studies in other jurisdictions and surveying the market of potential reputable vendors. We did consider the Commonwealth Casino Commission as a possible agency to conduct this study, but after deliberation, we decided to go with OPD for the above mentioned and previous mentioned reasons, and because the CC is currently already entangled with IPI in a legal battle over the suspension and revocation of the license, has lost more than half of its professional staff, and may have a conflict in terms of its ability to be impartial, to be fair and impartial. Now, whether the gaming industry is even viable in light of the impacts of the global pandemic on tourism generally and gaming specifically, uh, that's to be determined. And if the answer is yes, it is in fact viable, then what size industry makes sense for the CNMI, and how should it be structured legally and from what regulatory standpoint? So these are just some points that we must consider. I also want to say that in my discussions, in my meetings as gaming chairman, along with our vice chairwoman, Tina Sablan, who's not with us but is listening, along with our gaming committee members, we have been told several times at how busy the executive director is right now in trying to revoke this license. How busy is he? There were documents that we had asked for part of our review and auditing of the casino gaming that we couldn't get because of how busy they were, especially in their efforts to revoke the license. So again, these are just some of the reasons why that I express, and I ask for your support in overriding Section 704C. Thank you, Chairman Donald, and thank you, Speaker, and thank you, colleagues, for allowing me this time to speak on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Probst. Back to you, Representative.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you, Chairman Probst, for providing your input as the chairman for gaming. Colleagues, the third line item veto that we would like to override is Section 802D. And this is the ARPA expenditure plan. Now, this particular provision, which both houses worked on and agreed to, requires joint legislative approval for any actions that will be taken on Volume 4 of the American Rescue Plan Act. When looking at the governor's veto message, he only pointed out one concern, and that was that it would delay efficient processes already in place. But he goes on to mention that the spending plan was approved by U.S. Treasury and that they have already made significant changes between the April and July submission. Now, this is all the more reason to ensure that the spending plan to U.S. Treasury is being followed and that these changes, which we agreed upon by adopting the governor's Volume 4 proposal, is being followed and does not deviate from that spending plan, and that the allocations we have made in the general fund, which rely heavily on the funds the departments and agencies will be receiving through ARPA. And so, colleagues, it is my hope that we can consider these arguments and that we look back at the work that the committee has done, as well as the conference committee with the Senate, to come up with a product that both houses can agree to. And so, with that, Mr. Speaker and colleagues, at this time, I would like to start off with my first motion to override Section 601 of the Public Law 22-08 under the governor's veto message.
Privilege, Mr. Speaker.
I recognize your privilege, Representative Demapan.
This time, Mr. Speaker, the minority requests a short recess.
Noted. Short recess. go right back to session. Before we went on recess, Representative Demapan had the floor under privilege. Representative Demapan, would you like to proceed or do you yield?
I yield, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Demapan. Back to you, Representative Chairman Manglona.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I believe I made a motion to, I'm not sure, I think it was seconded.
No, it wasn't seconded.
Okay, then I'll just restate the motion, Mr. Speaker.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and colleagues. At this time, I would like to make a motion to override Section 601 of the Governor's Communication 22-80 regarding the fiscal year 2022 Budget Act. To override the line item veto on Section 601.
A motion has been made by Representative Donald Manglona to override Section 601 of Public Law 22-08. To override, yes, the veto. Thank you for that clarification. Section 601 of Public Law 22-08 and has been seconded. Discussion. Recognize Representative Leila Staffler.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you, colleagues, for allowing me to state one of the reasons why we would like to override this veto. The current statute, Title I, Division 8, from 8221 to 8223, pretty much authorizes the governor, lieutenant governor, Senate president, and speaker to obtain government houses for private residents. In Section 2223, it states that the personnel office shall designate houses for permanent residence for the 4 positions, which we all know to be, at least for the governor and lieutenant governor, the houses that exist here on Capitol Hill. I think it's 1335 for the lieutenant governor's house, and I don't know the number of the governor's house, but it is the one that is behind the Homeland Security area. We know these houses has been designated for years and years. They were last used, I believe, in what administration? In the 90s. And so they have been existent. Those have been the designated houses that we all as the community know to be the official housing. Within the statute, it does not say anywhere that the utility bills shall be paid in lieu of government housing not being available. In fact, I would go so far as to say that the Department of Finance practice of authorizing utility payments for not just one, as the JGO hearings have shown us, but several residences of the governor alone. And none of these charges have been authorized by law and should cease immediately. And that is one of the main reasons that we propose to override that veto. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Staffler. Floor is still open. Are we ready? I recognize Representative Sheila Babauta.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, I think it's important for us and for the viewing public to read into the record what language is being vetoed. And so for the members of the viewing public, Section 601, utilities, is what we are discussing right now because it has been line item vetoed by the governor. And it reads, the amount appropriated for the payment of utilities shall not be reprogrammed, nor shall other appropriations be reprogrammed for the payment of utilities, except for the purpose of covering increased utility costs due to rate increases. Notwithstanding any provision of law to the contrary, funds that are appropriated by this act or any subsequent amendments shall not be used or reprogrammed to pay for the utilities of any elected officials, including but not limited to any utility expenses incurred at a private or official residence. For purposes of this section, utilities does not include the expenses of elected officials incurred by reason of traveling or working on official business outside their respective home senatorial district. So members, that's the exact language that is being line item vetoed by our governor. We did feel as a body that this language was important to include in our budget law because of, well, everything that Rep. Leila just stated, for the record. And I think it would be irresponsible of us not to acknowledge the abuse of public funds when it comes to paying for utilities that the JGO committee has uncovered under Chairwoman Selena Babauta's leadership. And so because the governor's reason for line item vetoing this language was, basically because it's been done in the past and the housing units on Capitol Hill are not in living condition, we believe that is not reason enough to continue this kind of abuse. And so, members, I do ask for your support. I support overriding this veto. I think this language is important to include in our budget bill. We can model responsible governance, we can model accountability, and we can also, modeling learning from what was uncovered in the JGO committee. And so with that, Mr. Speaker, I do support override of this line item veto, section 601 under utilities. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative Sheila Babauta. I now recognize Representative Ed Probst.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, colleagues, for allowing me to comment on this. I just wanted to ask, Mr. Speaker, it says here, this is authorized for the governor, lieutenant governor, and the presiding officers of the legislature, which you are, as our speaker, one of those presiding officers. Mr. Speaker, may I ask you, and I apologize if I put you on the spot, but have you taken advantages? Are you paying for your own utilities?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank you for that, because if I'm, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe all of us have the same salaries. Is that correct? And you are a speaker, yet you make the same as we do. So with that said, essentially, my dear colleagues, our salaries are 1/4 of what our governor makes. He makes 120,000. We make barely over 30,000. And I know many of you would, when we discuss our power bills, are struggling. I'm one of them. I'm religiously, in the evenings, early mornings, going around turning off things and everything, because we got 4 kids, and they tend to leave things on, and it freaks me out. We try to keep our power bill at 400, but with the increasing rates, it's difficult. So there is that struggle. But we have seen, and we can't turn a blind eye to that this is not, that the governor is getting these types of bills. We have seen some bills that are as high as 16,000 in 1 month, 7,000, 9,000, 13,000. These are quite high. I also wanted to comment that we do know from our documents that the governor also has run a commercial piggery. Now, I'm sure the previous governors, I don't know, you could correct me on this, but I don't think they had a private business on their own private property. And it seems unfair that our constituents, our ratepayers or taxpayers, would have to continue to pay for that. We do know that the piggery has existed since November of 2015 at least. And in February of 2016, they had at least 140 pigs. And 2 of the 3 septic tanks were overflowing because of, I guess there was too many pigs or whatever, into the stream. This was one of the concerns about it. But nonetheless, it is a commercial piggery, and it has operated for those many years. We're in dire straits right now. Not only do we always hear that we need to think of revenue generating bills, it's like all the weight's on us, as if we are going to somehow come up with all the ideas to this, which is really difficult in this COVID era. But we do realize that we also have to make some cuts. Colleagues, I don't know how much more we could cut our salaries. I think if we did any more, how would we even be able to support our own families? We have made tremendous sacrifices. I believe it is not asking too much if the governor and lieutenant governor also do the same. So I appeal to your, you know, to you and in considering this override. And I thank you again, my dear colleagues, for allowing me to speak on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Probst. Floor is still open. I recognize Representative Richard Lozama.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Speaker and my colleagues. I just want to point out, because I like what Rep. Props was saying. I've been in the military for 22 years and I've never seen anyone given utility allowances. There's no such thing. When you look at this government with the ability to have, what do you call it, high amount of utility usage, then let's talk about limitation. Shall we come up with allowances limited to a certain amount? We don't have that. So the best thing for us to do now is to protect, and we need to override this bill. Just keep in mind, thousands and thousands of dollars every month. That's not just the residential usage. Think about it. Average, there is no such unlimited usage of power or electricity. So with this, we like to override it, and I hope that you guys support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Lozama. The floor is still open. Recognize Representative Corina Magofnia. Rep. Magofnia, hold on real quick.
Okay, so
Representative Magofnia, I apologize. We're having technical difficulties. We'll take a short recess.
Technical languages aside, I would like to appeal to my fellow colleagues from a different angle. And we all understand that that has been, perhaps that was the business practice of paying the utilities in lieu of the housing. And so just because it was done that way in the past, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the right thing, right? As our law states, there's actually nothing on there that says that that practice is allowed. And so we have to find a better way to go about, if that's what we would like to give to our governor and the other officials, that's fine. But let's make it reasonable and, okay for our people. So I would like to respectfully ask our colleagues, I would like to ask you guys, what does your conscience say? What does your principle say about this practice? And I hope that we would come to a compromise resolution about this. And just for the time being, I ask that you support this override with regards to the payment of the governor's utilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Magofnia. Any other member? Floor is still open. We ready? Ready. Anybody see where the floor leader went? I'll call for a quick recess. Oh, there you are. All right, members, we're back. to session. Before we went on recess, the floor was still open for discussion. And if there's no other member, I'd like to recognize the clerk to call the roll, and the number is 14 for this override of this line item veto to pass. So clerk?
Representative Fadat? Representative Fatal? Representative Selena Babalta?
Hungan.
Representative Sheila Babalta?
Yes.
Representative Joel Komatsu?
No.
Representative Vicente Komatsu?
Yes.
Representative Demapan?
Aye.
Representative Flores?
No.
Representative Guerrero?
No.
Representative Lizama?
Yes.
Representative Magofnia?
Yes.
Representative Maglonia?
Yes.
Representative Probst?
Yes.
Representative John Paul Sablan?
Aye.
Representative Sunny Claus?
No.
Representative Staffler?
Yes.
Representative Yanktamai?
Awad.
Representative Yumo? Representative Fatal?
No.
Representative Yumo? Mr. Speaker?
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, 11 members voted yes and 8 members voted no. And one member is absent.
Thank you, clerk. With 11 voting yes and 8 voting no and 1 member absent, the override for this line item veto is unsuccessful. It does not pass. I now recognize Representative Donald Manglonia. Short recess. Members will rise back to session.
Yes.
And before we went on recess, Chairman Donald Manglonia had the floor. I now recognize Chairman Manglonia.
Thank you again, Mr. Speaker. At this time, I move to override the governor's line item veto on section 704C. And this would be the 50,000 that was set aside for the feasibility study on the casino gaming industry.
Thank you, Representative Manglonia. A motion has been made to override the line item veto section 704C of Public Law 22-08. and has been seconded. Discussion on the floor. Recognize Representative Sheila Babauta.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, I think it's important for the viewing public and for us to really go through the language that was vetoed. And so I would like to read into the record that Section 704C does state of the funds appropriated to the Office of Planning and Development Operations, Business Unit 1022, $50,000 shall be used to fund a market feasibility study on the casino gaming industry in the Commonwealth. Not later than 180 days after the enactment of this act, the Executive Director of the Office of Planning and Development shall make public and submit to the legislature a report on the market potential and appropriate legal and regulatory structure necessary for a well-managed casino gaming industry that is suitable for the Commonwealth's long-term development goals. No fewer than 3 market scenarios shall be presented in the final report. The Executive Director shall contract with a qualified professional firm to conduct the study, which shall include but not be limited to an assessment of the current and potential size of the gaming market, a review of the current legal and regulatory framework, including taxes and fees, license structure and recommendations for reform, and community engagement and stakeholder consultations to assess public sentiment toward the industry, evaluate social and economic impacts, and propose mitigation options that may be considered to address negative impacts. Colleagues, I completely support overriding this veto. As stated earlier by Representative Ed Probst, who is the chairman of the Gaming Committee, OPD does have the authority to conduct these studies, which is the main reason the governor used to veto this language. And so if OPD does have the authority, $50,000 to conduct a study, I think is a small amount to pay to find this information that would be helpful to our community and decision makers. Can we afford not to? I think this study should already be available to us. And if it was, we wouldn't be in the situation we are right now. And so with that, Mr. Speaker, colleagues, I support overriding this veto, and I encourage you to support it as well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative Sheila Babauta. The floor is still open. Recognize Representative John Paul Sablan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as we all know, the Office of Planning and Development has the powers to conduct feasibility studies for any programs or industries that we have here in the Commonwealth. But I think it's only prudent that we allow the chairman of Ways and Means to kind of enlighten the viewing public and also this August body. How did we came about with the $50,000? I know that this provision is a product of the conflict committee, but did we get any communication from OPD that a $50,000 would be suffice to conduct a feasibility study on gaming? And if not, and if there's no communication, how do we came about with this amount? We don't want to be just throwing amounts here and there, and if it's not going to really serve the purpose of conducting a feasibility study for whatever purpose this August body wishes to have. So I think it's only prudent that our chairman and our mover of this override gives this August body and the viewing public a explanation. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative John Paul Sablan. Chairman Manglonia, care to recognize Chairman Manglonia?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Rep. JP, for bringing this up. It wasn't actually the product of the conference committee, but it was in the initial bill that was introduced in the House. This $50,000, and as I stated earlier, the language came about a discussion Rep. Tina Sablan had with OPD, and that they have mentioned to her that they have the capability to conduct this study. I believe the amount that was proposed was within I guess would be sufficient to conduct this study. And, as stated, whether if they need additional funding, then that's something that we can consider. There were several items on the bill that were vetoed in regards to funding, such as money that was set aside for Micronesian legal services. These are monies that we can reappropriate should, if this override becomes successful, then that's additional funds that we can provide OPD to fully fund this study should they need the additional funds. But that is it's a baseline amount that we set for all feasibility study to include the studies that we had proposed for the Department of Corrections and DPS, which I mean, and Hopwood, which were all approved in the budget. And so that's an amount we've set the standard for all feasibility studies, and the others have been approved. It was just this portion which the governor had. His reasonings were just that it should be for the Commonwealth Casino Commission. But as the chairman for gaming had mentioned earlier, that part of the statute that created OPD listed the duties of the agency, and so we again felt that it should belong to OPD. I hope that answered your question, Rep. Sablan.
Recognize Representative John Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Chairman Dono, for the explanation. I just wanted to state for the record that according to your statement that there was no communication from OPD with regards to the amount, but that you have spoken to Reptina and she has spoken with OPD, and that's where we came about with that. I just want that to state for the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative John Paul Sablan. I recognize Representative Ed Probst, then Representative Selena.
Thank you. If I may add to Rep. John Paul Sablan's question, if it's okay. I was told from Rep. Tina Sablan that that there were, of course, as previously mentioned, that there were contractors who had done this type of work, and the actual estimates that came back from different ones was between $45,000 to $55,000. Those were the estimates, and I think that's why the 50,000 was brought in. So I think that is a pretty close figure, and I'm pretty sure that they could work within that amount. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Probst. Recognize Representative Selena Babalta.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to add that OPD helped draft the language for this, so they are familiar and they are capable of doing these kinds of studies. They also reached out to other vendors and contractors who have done this work for other governments, such as the government of Laos, Vietnam, and that was the estimate that OPD, according to the outreach they did to vendors and contractors, that they came up with. It's anywhere between 40 to 50. In fact, most of the estimates that came in were well below 50, and the cap would be at 45,000. So this amount is within reason to conduct this study. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative Selena Babalta. Floor is still open. Recognize Representative Ed Probst.
I do want to also mention that OPD is actually under the Office of the Governor. Is that correct? Yes. Thank you. And I am surprised that I mean, there's a little bit of irony here. We are really lobbying for OPD to conduct this study, and I would think it'd be the opposite, but it's not. It's a little bit strange, but I think that's because we have full faith in OPD. I know often we have our differences when it comes to partisan politics, but this is not one of them. This is something that we feel that they have qualified people at OPD, and also that we have trust and faith that they will be able to find and suit the right contractor for for this type of work. Just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Probst. Floor is still open. Recognize Representative Leila Staffler.
And just to clarify, although Rep. Sablan is not here, she does have back and forth emails with OPD, and she spoke with the director a few times over the phone, and they are the ones who sent her feasibility studies and scopes of work. So OPD is fully aware and supports this language and this provision. And so for those reasons, we ask for your support to help our community make a data-driven decision by looking at what is the actual numbers so that we can really look at how to help our economy. I mean, that's one of our tasks all the time that's being sent down to us. This would be one of our ways to do that in a responsible and fiscally a prudent way. And so for that, please, we ask for your help to override this veto. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Leila Staffler. Recognize Representative Selena Babauta.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to add, this is something also, I hope that those who are considering voting in the negative to consider that this is only for this fiscal year. It doesn't go beyond the fiscal year. So I hope you take that into consideration when you vote. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'm ready to vote.
Thank you. I now recognize Representative John Paul Sablan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'm happy that a lot of our colleagues are chiming in, and I'm happy that Rep. Staffler had mentioned that Tina had communication through emails. I just wish that moving forward, emails such as this, when we make decisions on override, that it be shared with the rest of our colleagues so we can make that hard vote decision. I understand that this is only for this fiscal year. That's exactly my point. If it's only for this fiscal year, we might as well make the right amount so that we serve the purpose of what we're trying to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative John Paul Sablan. Floor is still open. We ready?
Just
I'll
a
recognize
question.
the floor leader.
Yeah, I'd like to know if anyone knows, is this only going to be the island for the island of Tinian or Saipan, or does this include the island of Tinian and Rhoda as well as, because they have gaming in their islands, I guess OPD including it everywhere?
I'd like to recognize the chairman of Ways and Means.
Yeah, it's the overall casino industry, a feasibility study on the gaming industry in the Commonwealth. So this would be a Commonwealth-wide study.
Thank you, Chairman Manglonia. Recognize Representative Sheila Babauta.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think since this feasibility study is going to include Saipan, Tinian, Rhoda, and thank you, Rep. JP, for bringing up your concern about $50,000, whether that is enough or not. But given the facts that were shared on quotes that were provided and estimates of 45 to 55,000, this type of work has already been done in countries way bigger than ours. And so, the data that's going to be used for this feasibility study, I think 50,000 is appropriate. If not, I think we can cross that bridge when we get there. The point is we need to get started so that we don't see another Tinian dynasty happen, so we don't see another IPI happen. I'm sure that we all get questions in the community as to what's going to happen to that building in Garpan and how it is such an eyesore. So this feasibility study will really give us a bird's eye picture and include helpful information to guide us on our next steps. And so again, colleagues, 50,000 is really a small price to pay for this kind of guidance. I see this as an investment in our economy, in our community, and I see this as, the right action to take at this time. So again, I'm ready to vote. I support overriding this veto. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative Sheila Babauta. The floor is still open. We ready? All right, clerk, please call the roll.
Representative Vada,
Speak.
Okay, recognize Vice Speaker Ato.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you, colleagues. Sorry, just getting a little bit of technical difficulties on this end, but I think it's important what Rep Yumo had brought up regarding the senatorial districts. Says we understand that the feasibility study is part of OPD's responsibilities when it was created, and right now the feasibility study will be based on what we currently have as in IPI, but we got to make sure that we state for the record that this feasibility study is also going to be in will take care of the senatorial districts. As we all know that there's a bill that's been introduced already in the Senate to remove the salaries of the Rota Gaming Commission commissioners, and we don't have a commission in the third senatorial district, but Tinian does also have a commission. So I believe that this feasibility study should, at least for the record in today's session, should also include the senatorial districts because it separates the CNMI and the senatorial districts. Just so for the record, I wanted to state that it would also include the senatorial districts. We are not, again, Rep. Yumo had just introduced a legislation to consider localizing the casino within the third senatorial district. With that, I yield, Mr. Speaker, and I'm ready to vote.
Thank you, Vice Speaker Ato. Before I move forward again, anybody on the floor? Ready? Okay, clerk, please call the roll.
Representative Vada, Representative Vatao,
Yes.
Representative Selena Babalta,
Again.
Representative Sheila Babalta,
Yes.
Representative Joel Komatsu,
Yes.
Representative Vicente Komatsu,
Yes.
Representative Damapan, Representative Flores, Representative Guerrero,
No.
Representative Lizama,
Yes.
Representative Mangofnia, Representative Manglonia,
Yes.
Representative Probst,
Yes.
Representative John Paul Sablan,
Again.
Representative San Nicolas,
No.
Representative Staffler,
Yes.
Representative Yanktamai,
Aware.
Representative Yumo, Representative Vada, Representative Damapan,
Aye.
Representative Flores,
Yes.
Mr. Speaker,
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, 15 members voted yes, 3 members voted no, and 2 members are absent.
Thank you, clerk. With 15 members voting yes, section 704C, the override for this line item veto hereby passes the House. I now recognize Representative Donald Manglonia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, colleagues. The next provision that I would like to override is Section 802D, and so I hereby move to override Section 802D of Public Law 22-08.
A motion has been made by Representative Donald Manglonia to override the line item veto under Section 802D of Public Law 22-08 and has been seconded. Discussion on the floor. I recognize Representative Sheila Babalta.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, colleagues, and the viewing public. Again, I believe it's very important that we read into the record and really inform our audience what we're talking about. And so for the record, 804D does cover the American Rescue Plan Act. And the language is as follows. Absent legislative consent in the form of a House Joint Resolution, the governor shall make no changes to the allocations of outside source funds in the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, spending plan as reflected in Schedule B and as set forth in Volume 4 of the governor's annual budget submission of April 2021 and amended in July 2021 that may directly or indirectly affect the appropriations made herein. Provided, however, the expenditure authorities of all branches, municipalities, departments, agencies, instrumentalities, and offices to which ARPA funds are allocated may reprogram ARPA funds allocated for personnel expenses to non-personnel expenses in accordance with the CNMI Planning and Budgeting Act as set forth in Title I, Section 7402 of the Commonwealth Code. In the event of any discrepancies or conflicts between Schedule A and Schedule B, Schedule A shall govern with respect to general fund / non-federal appropriations. So colleagues and the viewing public, that is the language that we are debating right now that is up for discussion. And I support overriding this line item veto because we used the governor's ARPA spending plan to direct how we funded these agencies and organizations, municipalities, the branches. We used the ARPA spending plan to guide how we allocated local funds. And if changes were to be made from the ARPA spending plan, how would we know if agencies are appropriately funded? I know that in the governor's veto description, he does say that it would delay efficient processes already in place. And I believe that if we were to approve any changes in the ARPA spending plan through the form of a House Joint Resolution, this body and the Senate would act accordingly. I do have faith that the bodies would be able to pass a House Joint Resolution swiftly if it were to impact our government employees and the services that we provide to our people. Colleagues, if we do not override this language, I believe that there really is no power of the purse in the House of Representatives. We use the spending plan to guide how we funded local agencies. Now, if 4 million was given to DPS and that were moved to another agency, then that would mean we would ultimately be underfunding a department without even knowing that our government employees are suffering from the lack of resources. So with that reason, I am ready to vote. I support overriding this line item veto, and I encourage you colleagues to do the same. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative Sheila Babalta. The floor is still open. Recognize Representative Leila Staffler.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you, colleagues, for indulging. I just want to reiterate how what colleague Babalta was saying, in that one of the main reasons, again, that we put this provision in was to protect the departments overall, because all of the major decisions that we made with the local funding was determined on what ARPA funding was also given to them, in particular to throw out the scholarship office. I know that was a main concern among our colleagues, that they would be possibly underfunded. But one of the reasons why we chose to move the funds around was that the ARPA funding that was given to them originally actually was more than what they asked for during the budget request. And to protect them with this, or to have this provision, will protect their office and every other one that is relying on the ARPA funding to ensure that they have enough funds for operations. And so to protect all agencies and the workers that are doing the good work for the people, we ask that you support this budget override. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Staffler. Floor is still open. We're ready. Vice? Oh, recognize Representative Selena Babauta.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and colleagues. I just wanted to say that this provision simply protects government agencies in carrying out their priorities to improve their departments and their services to the general public. By now, agencies have received word, of course, that there's ARPA funding available to help them, and they've already probably laid out their spending priorities based on the promises of the governor with respect to how much ARPA funds they will be distributed to, that will be distributed to the departments. And this is why the House of Representatives, all of us included, need to start acting like a separate branch of the government. I've said this before, the House of Representatives raison d'etre is to control the government's purse, their existence, and one of their main duties is to do so. And, you know, look at it from this point of view. The governor submitted his proposal, and in this proposal is included these ARPA funds on volume 4. And we are simply protecting that. We're not changing anything. We're simply protecting his promises to the departments to improve the services, to hire the personnel they need to be more efficient in our government. So why now did he veto this administrative provision? What does that tell us? Representative Joel Camacho, you have stated in the past that you have great concern for the scholarship office, and we agree. So we spoke with the administrator, Ms. Sablan Camacho, and she has assured us, the Ways and Means Committee, that she was content with what she has because most of her funding came from ARPA funds. And in fact, there will be an increase to the students who are eligible to receive. This provision simply protects that. So I hope we gain your support on that. Lokwi edzi I 10 million ni paray MRI ni banisita ginigispitatta ne. Afa na garantia gua na tiporo matsuli zo na salapita lune. Zapo manaset bigotro banda. No, I have also received information from the mayor of Saipan that he was assured $4 million. Lo distipago teresisipi zo na salapi. Ginini ARPA. Za preciso edzo para distrito. Ginigi za Saipan. And additionally, an argument to support this override is that the governor continually renews the reprogramming authority of the Secretary of Finance. This administrative provision protects the departments from that. And as recently as October 26, just 2 days ago, Mongi memo ay gobyerno na guidza solo sinya mapreba hodzi nebo po fan mahire under ARPA funds. That restricts the departments significantly. Sa tinga man magodi ka na niya, ni porofan man hire, tauto ni siya mismo tumungo i departamento ne. Siya tumungo hodzi po ma-hire. Sa guiza, siya man no humahando and no na departamento. And I hope we can work on this and override this sa preciso na provision para departamento dyan para publiko. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'm ready to vote.
Thank you, Representative Selena. Any further? We're ready? Okay, clerk, please call the roll.
Speak.
Recognize Vice Speaker Ato.
My apologies, I speak. Just a quick question, I guess, to the chairman of Ways and Means or members of the Ways and Means Committee. Have the committee received or requested from the Department of Finance or OMB of any reprogramming of funds that have transpired in the last 3 months or in this current month that we're facing right now?
Recognize Chairman Langlonia.
No, Vice Speaker, we have not received any reports, but from the last quarter, I believe they have until next month to submit their quarterly report.
Vice
Okay,
Speaker.
thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Speak. How about anything that's come to the Committee of Ways and Means regarding specific employees within the government that were furloughed and brought back prior to the ARPA funds that are being funded under a different account today in this fiscal year?
Vice Speaker, we have not received any communication from the administration or Secretary of Finance. From my understanding, to my office, we have not received anything within the past month.
Okay, yeah, because I mean, Chair Selena, sorry, Speak, is it okay?
Yeah, you have the floor.
Chair Selena Babauta had brought up a point regarding the reprogramming authority that's been given to the Secretary of Finance, and also regarding the general funds, as it's inherited from last fiscal year, so the governor's kind of extending that on a monthly basis or as needed. And those are reflective of the general fund. And we all know that the 30% total of the administration to have reprogramming authority within the executive branch. So I think, I don't know if we can say it's premature right now to determine what's been reprogrammed. I understand the intent of the override and I respect that. But one of the things that we need to understand first is, are we trying to commingle the general fund with the ARPA funds? I understand that the ARPA spending plan was utilized in coming up with a budget that was going to be proposed to the body for adoption, and we did that. And I believe that some of the line item vetoes that the governor presented, I think it's also cognizant for us to look at least the first quarter before we move on. We can always amend the budget. We can always add other languages to the budget henceforward. But whether we override this today or not, or even if the Senate's going to act on the override if we do override it today. So I just wanted to put that out, Speaker and Chair. Thank you for answering the questions. I think it'd be important to have those information at the very least before we act on this override, because we can still do amendments to the budget if we don't act on the override today. Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members.
Thank you, Vice Speaker. Representative Manglona, you have anything to add? Recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Vice, for your comments. I understand your reasoning behind this, but this was one of the contentions that we discussed in the conference committee, to ensure that these agencies are properly funded. Whether it may be premature to determine that, that could easily be rectified, as you stated, by amending the budget bill. But at this time, in order to keep the true intention of how this provision came about, we feel that whether whether the override passes here in the House or not, and if it does, whether it passes the Senate or not, we can still come back and amend this budget bill. But in the meantime, like as I've stated, the original intention was to ensure that none of these funds are moved around. I mean, the compromise was we accepted the governor's version, his spending plan to us as well as to the U.S. Treasury. And as I've stated earlier, one of the governor's message indicated that they spent a lot of time making changes to the volume 4 between the April and July submission. So I believe that's more than enough time for the governor to really lay out how he would like to spend these monies. In addition, members and colleagues, there's already reportings set in place. OPA is monitoring all these funds. This isn't just another way to safeguard all the monies that have been allocated for the different agencies. I'd hate to hear that a month from now we find out that CHCC is short by 5 million because they use that money to fund something else that wasn't approved, or that the medical referral patients aren't receiving their stipends. The MRI machine, as Chairman Babalta has stated, hasn't been purchased, or no bids have gone out for that. So all of this, the committee took into consideration and have worked with the Senate. And that's why I'd have to assume that that's one of the main reasons why the conference committee went as smoothly as it did, because we worked together with the Senate to ensure that the language we wanted in this bill was adopted. And with the Senate version, they added another section to this provision, but we agreed to take that out, and that was what came out as a product of the conference committee. And so with that, members and colleagues, when we look towards the next budget hearings next year, some of these ARPA monies won't be available. So when we make our decisions next year as well, while still being in the current fiscal year, these are some of the challenges that we're going to face, and to determine whether these ARPA funds were really used for their intended purposes, and how can we allocate funding for these agencies come fiscal year 2023. And so, thank you for your time, colleagues. I really hope that you consider the proposals that we've presented to you guys, and whether this gets approved here or not, come next month when we do get a report, and I present to you guys any reallocation or reappropriation that we can also consider possibly amending this public law further. So again, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, thank you, Vice, for your comments.
Thank you, Chairman Manglonia. Any further? Ready? Okay, clerk, we'll try this again. Call the roll.
Representative Bada?
No.
Representative Selena Babalta?
Okay.
Representative Sheila Babalta?
Yes.
Representative Joel Komatsu?
No.
Representative Vicente Komatsu?
Yes.
Representative Damapan?
Aye.
Representative Flores?
No.
Representative Guerrero?
No.
Representative Lizama?
Yes.
Representative Magofnia?
Yes.
Representative Manglonia?
Yes.
Representative Probst?
Yes.
Representative John Paul Sablan?
Aye.
Representative Simiclas?
No.
Representative Staffler?
Yes.
Representative Youngthamai?
Aware.
Representative Yubo? Representative Vada?
No.
Mr. Speaker?
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, 11 members voted yes, 8 members voted no, and 1 member is absent.
Thank you, clerk. With 11 voting yes, 8 voting no, and 1 absent, the override of the line item veto does not pass the House. Thank you, members. All right, we're still under messages from the governor. The floor is still open for discussion on any of the communications. Ready? Ready? Okay, thank you, members. We now move down to Senate communications, and I recognize the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On item 7, Senate Communications, we have Senate Communication 22-56 through 22-60.
Thank you, clerk. I now recognize the floor leader for the proper motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I now offer a motion to accept Senate Communication 2256 through 2260 to become proper of the House. So move.
A motion has been made by the floor leader to accept Senate communications and has been seconded. Any discussion on the floor? Ready? All those in favor to accept Senate communications, please say aye. All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. The Senate communications are hereby property of the House. Thank you, members. For Senate Communication 22-57, that will go to the Committee on JGO. Senate Communication 22-58 will go to the Committee on Commerce and Tourism. Senate Communication 22-59 will go to the Committees of JGO and Education. Senate Communication 22-60 will also go to the Committees on JGO and Education. And that's about it. Any discussion? My apologies, members. The last Senate Communication 22-60 will just go to JGO. Ready? All right, we'll move down to item number 8, and I recognize the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Under item 8, House Communications, we have House Communication 22-37 to 22-39.
Thank you, clerk. Any discussion under House Communications? Ready? All right, we'll move down to item number 9, Communications from the Judicial Branch. I recognize the clerk.
Thank you again, Mr. Speaker. On item 9, we have 2 items, Judicial Communication, Branch Communication 22-4 and 22-5.
Thank you, clerk. Any discussions under Judicial Communications from the Judicial Branch? Ready? Judicial Branch Communication 22-4 and 22-5 will both be referred to the Committee on JGO for a review. Thank you, members. We now move down to item number 10, Communications from Departments and Agencies. I recognize the clerk.
Thank you again, Mr. Speaker. Under item 10, Communications from Department and Agencies, we only have one item, Department and Agency Communication 22-28.
Thank you, clerk. Any discussions under item number 10? Ready? All right, we'll now move down to item number 11. I now recognize the clerk.
Again, Mr. Speaker, thank you. Under Miscellaneous Communication, item 11, we have Miscellaneous Communication 22-69 through 22-72.
Thank you, clerk. Any discussions under Miscellaneous Communications? Sorry. Ready? All right. For Miscellaneous Communication 22-69, I'd like to refer that to the Committee of Ways and Means for reference. And Miscellaneous Communication 22-70 will also go to Ways and Means for reference. And Miscellaneous Communication 22-72 will also go to the Committee on Ways and Means for reference. Thank you, members. We now move down to item 12. I now recognize the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Under item 12, reports of standing committees, we have 3 items. Standing Committee Report 2229, 2230, 2231, all ready for House action.
Thank you, clerk. I now recognize the floor leader for the adoption of the standing committees.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And with that, first, offer a motion to adopt Standing Committee Report 22-29, reporting on House Bill number 22-15, entitled to establish the Foster Care Sponsorship Program under the Department of Community and Cultural Affairs Division of Youth Services and for other purposes. Your House Committee on Health and Welfare recommends that the House pass House Bill 22-15 in its current form. So moved.
A motion has been made by the floor leader to adopt Standing Committee Report number 22-29 and has been seconded. Any discussion on the floor? Ready? Okay. All those in favor to adopt Standing Committee Report 22-29, please say aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. Standing Committee Report 22-29 is hereby adopted. Floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Second, on our list, Standing Committee Report 22-30. For a motion to adopt Standing Committee Report 22-30, reporting on House Bill 22-53, entitled to appropriate funds for the Commonwealth Medicaid agencies to ensure that federal appropriated and awarded funds may be expended for program administration, reimbursement to medical providers, and compliance and Medicaid enterprise systems, and further enable recruitment, retention, and appropriate classification and compensation of personnel. And to further enable recruitment, retention, I apologize, Speaker. Your House Committee on Health and Welfare recommends that the House pass the bill in form House Bill 22-53 HS1. So move.
Thank you, Floor Leader. A motion has been made to adopt Standing Committee Report 22-30 and has been seconded. Any discussion on the floor? Ready? Okay, all those in favor to adopt Standing Committee Report 22-30, please say aye. All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. Standing Committee Report 22-30 here is hereby adopted. Floor Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And now for a motion to pass to adopt Standing Committee Report 22-31, reporting on House Bill 22-55, entitled to amend 4 CMC subsection 5526 to establish separate license for online sales of alcoholic beverages. Your Committee on Commerce and Tourism recommends that the House pass the bill in the form of House Bill number 22-55 HS1. So move.
Thank you, Floor Leader. A motion has been made to adopt Standing Committee Report 22-31 and has been seconded. Discussion on the floor. Ready? All those in favor to adopt Standing Committee Report 22-31, please say aye. All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. Standing Committee Report 22-31 is hereby adopted. Thank you, members. We have none under item number 13. We have none under item number 14. We now move to item number 15, resolution calendar, and I recognize the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have two resolutions in our calendar. First, I offer a motion to adopt House Resolution number 22-12, a House Resolution to honor and commend the Sinamai Wildland Fire Crew 36 for the courageous actions and sacrifice in fighting the California wildfires. So move.
A motion has been made by the floor leader to adopt House Resolution 22-12 and has been seconded. Any discussion on the floor? Rep Staffler, do you have a? Okay. Ready? Okay. All those in favor to adopt House Resolution 22-12, please say aye. All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. House Resolution 22-12 is hereby adopted. Floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And now I offer a motion to adopt House Joint Resolution number 22-11, a House Joint Resolution to condemn the government of Japan's decision to dump nuclear waste into the Pacific, oppose any other government's action related to nuclear testing, storage, and waste disposal in the Pacific, and reaffirms everyone's fundamental right to a safe and healthy living environment. So move.
A motion has been made by the floor leader to adopt House Joint Resolution 22-11, and it has been seconded. Any discussion on the floor? Recognized Representative Sheila Babauta.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, I know this is on calendar for voting today. I would like to offer a floor amendment to House Joint Resolution 22-11 and hereby substitute it with House Joint Resolution 22-11, House Substitute 1, consistent with the intent of the foregoing amendment. I hereby also move to allow the legal counsel together with the House Clerk to make further non-substantive technical amendments that are strictly necessary to effectuate the intent of this amendment. So move.
House substitute floor amendment has been offered by Representative Sheila Babalta, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? Recognize Representative John Paul Sabla.
Well, I yield, Mr. Speaker, to the mover to kind of explain to the full body the substitute, the gist of the whole entire substitute.
Okay, thank you, Representative Sablan. Recognize Representative Sheila Babalta.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Rep. JP. Colleagues, since House Joint Resolution 22-11 was introduced, I have met with the Consul of Japan, Consul Ono. I have also been in communication with a nuclear specialist from Greenpeace East Asia and some of the professionals out of BECQ, our local agencies, and those are the main amendments that were made and considered in this House substitute. So if we take a look at the screen, we are going to share briefly, piece by piece, the highlighted items that were amended. So we went ahead and amended the title of the resolution from what was stated earlier by the floor leader to the language stated on the screen, which reads, to oppose any government's actions related to nuclear testing, storage, and waste disposal in the Pacific, and reaffirm everyone's fundamental right to a safe and healthy living environment. And so this was a recommendation that was offered by the Consulate of Japan here on Saipan. If we move down, we just made the amendments to match the title. So in the first paragraph there, you do see "and in broader Oceania," and we did remove language that mentioned Japan. Moving on to the second paragraph, we wanted to add the April 2021 decision that was announced by Japan's government to discharge over 1 million tons of nuclear waste. And so this new language reads, whereas in April 2021, Japan's government announced a decision to discharge over 1 million tons of nuclear waste that have undergone processing in the systems called ALPS into the Pacific Ocean. This decision has sparked outrage among the peoples of Oceania. And then the rest of the language does remain the same. Okay, let's move on. And please, if there are any questions, Mr. Speaker, I'd be happy to answer them as we go. So here on the screen, you do see language inserted that was offered by the CNMI Bureau of Environmental and Coastal Quality, BECQ, that they have chosen to adopt specific language addressing radioactivity in water for the CNMI water quality standards that states the concentration of radioactivity shall not exceed the values listed in the Code of Federal Regulations, Title 10, Part 20, Appendix B, effluent concentrations, column 2. When ambient conditions exceed listed values, there shall be no worsening of water quality from the ambient conditions. So we just wanted to insert this language to show that our local agencies, our local perspective is also in line with protecting our water quality standards. Moving on, legal counsel, thank you so much for your assistance. And here is where the bulk of the amendments were inserted because the nuclear specialist who has been working in Japan for over 30 years, and this information was shared with this body, the nuclear specialist from Greenpeace East Asia did reach out to provide so much information and reports regarding Fukushima plant, the information that's been shared about this decision over decades. And so colleagues, Mr. Speaker, the amendment, the substitute is in front of you. I can read over what was included just so that it's stated for the record, but if there's no objection, I'd like to pass over that and move on. Yep. Okay, great. Thank you. And so just moving on, legal counsel, can you move down to now therefore be it resolved? So here we did just make the amendments to match the title, removing the word condemn, removing the government of Japan. And then if you scroll further down, the Japanese government does have a new prime minister and a new cabinet. And so we did insert those changes so that it's updated to reflect who shall receive a copy of the certified substitute. Members, Mr. Speaker, I am ready to answer any questions if any of the members have any questions at this time. But, our community, I've received lots of positive feedback about this resolution. Our community rallies behind protecting our natural resources and protecting our ocean, not just for us today, but for future generations. And the information that was shared with the members, that was shared with me from the experts and the nuclear specialists from Greenpeace East Asia really does support justification, right, on why a resolution like this is important. Because to include our supportive language to support even those from Japan who are speaking up against this decision. I know that information has been shared about the type of chemicals to be released and how the information that was shared with us minimized the impact of this decision is just false. And because it is not natural to dump toxic waste that has been treated, and mind you, treating this water is not a guarantee that the radioactivity will be removed from the water, and that was shown in studies provided to us. This resolution will just be an official statement of our support for our brothers and sisters in the Pacific who also oppose this decision. We would like to request that an independent environmental impact study be conducted and that they consider alternative measures, because reports have been released that there are alternative measures to this decision. And so, Mr. Speaker, with that, I am ready to answer any questions, and I yield.
Thank you, Representative Sheila Babauta. Any further discussions? Under the recognized Representative John Paul Sablan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to take this opportunity to thank the mover and the author of this House Joint Resolution for working closely with the Japan Consulate. But I just have one clarification that the several head of states of Japan was these names recommended to give a certified copy by the consulate? Were all these names recommended by the Japan consulate? Thank you.
Recognize Representative Sheila.
Thank you, Rep. JP. When I did meet with the consulate, he did inform me that there may be a new prime minister with a new cabinet. So we were aware of that change to come. It was legal counsel that pointed out the updates should be reflected in this version. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Sablan. Thank you, Representative Sheila Babauta. Any more further discussion under the substitute offered by Representative Sheila? Ready? Okay. All those in favor to adopt the substitute offered by Representative Sheila Babauta, please say aye. All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. House Joint Resolution number 22-11 is now House Joint Resolution 22-11HS1. Now we move back to the main motion. Any discussion? Ready? Clerk, please call the roll.
Representative Vada? Representative Vada?
Yes.
Representative Selena Babauta?
Good.
Representative Sheila Babauta?
Yes.
Representative Joel Komatsu?
Good.
Representative Vicente Komatsu?
Yes.
Representative Damapan?
Good.
Representative Flores?
Yes.
Representative Guerrero?
Good.
Representative Nizama?
Yes.
Representative Magofnia? Representative Manglonia. Representative Probst. Representative John Paul Sablan.
Ngan.
Representative Cindy Claus.
Yes.
Representative Staffler.
Yes.
Representative Yang Tamay.
Aware.
Representative Yumo. Representative Probst. Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, 18 members present voted yes.
With 18 members voting yes, House Joint Resolution number 22-11 HS1 is hereby adopted. We now move down to item number 16, bill calendar, and I recognize the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First on our list, I'd like to offer a motion to pass House Bill number 22-15, a bill for an act to establish a foster care sponsorship program under the Department of Community and Culture Affairs Division of Youth Services and for other purposes. So moved.
Thank you, floor leader. A motion has been made to pass House Bill 22-15 and has been seconded. Discussions on the floor. We're ready? Okay, clerk, please call the roll.
Representative Vada.
Yes.
Representative Vato.
Yes.
Representative Selena Babalta.
Ngan.
Representative Sheila Babalta.
Yes.
Representative Joel Komatsu.
Ngan.
Representative Vicente Komatsu.
Yes.
Representative Damapan.
Ngan.
Representative Flores.
Yes.
Representative Guerrero.
Ngan.
Representative Lizama.
Yes.
Representative Magofnia.
Yes.
Representative Manglonia.
Yes.
Representative Probst. Representative John Paul Sablan.
Ngan.
Representative Cindy Claus.
Yes.
Representative Staffler.
Yes.
Representative Yang Tamay.
Aware.
Representative Yumo.
Yes.
Representative Probst. Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, 18 members, all 18 members present voted yes.
Thank you, clerk. With all 18 members present voting yes, House Bill 22-15 hereby passes the House. Floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And now offer a motion to pass House Bill number 22-53 HS1, the bill for an act to further enable recruitment, retention, and appropriate classification and compensation of Medicaid personnel and for other purposes. So moved.
Thank you, floor leader. A motion has been made by the floor leader to pass House Bill 22-53 HS1 and has been seconded. Discussion on the floor. We're ready? Okay, clerk, please call the roll.
Representative Vada. Representative Fatal.
Yes.
Representative Selena Babalta.
Ngan.
Representative Sheila Babalta.
Yes.
Representative Joel Komatsu.
Ngan.
Representative Vicente Komatsu.
Yes.
Representative Damapan.
Ngan.
Representative Flores.
Yes.
Representative Guerrero.
Ngan.
Representative Lizama.
Yes.
Representative Magofnia.
Yes.
Representative Manglonia.
Yes.
Representative John Paul Sablan.
Ngan.
Representative Cindy Claus.
Yes.
Representative Staffler.
Yes.
Representative Yang Tamay.
Aware.
Representative Yumo. Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, all 18 members present voted yes.
Thank you, clerk. With all 18 members in present voting yes, House Bill 22-53 HS1 hereby passes the House. Floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now for a motion to pass House Bill number 22-55 HS1, a bill for an act to establish a separate license for online sales of alcoholic beverages. So moved.
Thank you, floor leader. A motion has been made to pass House Bill 22-55 HS1. And it has been seconded. Any discussion on the floor? Ready? Clerk, please call the roll.
Representative Vada. Representative Fatal.
Yes.
Representative Selena Babalta.
Ngan.
Representative Sheila Babalta.
Yes.
Representative Joel Komatsu.
Ngan.
Representative Vicente Komatsu.
Yes.
Representative Damapan.
Ngan.
Representative Flores.
Yes.
Representative Guerrero.
Ngan.
Representative Lizama.
Yes.
Representative Magofnia. Representative Manglonia.
Yes.
Representative John Paul Sablan,
Hungan.
Representative Cindy Claus,
Yes.
Representative Staffler,
Yes.
Representative Yanktamai,
Hungan.
Representative Yumo,
Yes.
Mr. Speaker.
Awe.
Mr. Speaker, all 18 members present voted yes.
Thank you, Clerk. With all 18 members present voting yes, House Bill 22-55 HS1 hereby passes the House. I recognize the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know we are leaving one bill on calendar, and with the permission of our JGO chairwoman, under Rule 2, Section 4C and D, I will be pulling out House Bill number 22-7 and place on bill calendar on the next House session. And that will be the bill to provide clarity relative to crime of promoting prison contraband, or otherwise known as Contraband Reform Act of 2021, authored by my good colleague over here, Rep. John Paul Palacio Sablan. Thank you, Chairwoman of JGO.
Thank you, floor leader. And thank you, Representative John Paul Sablan, for introducing the bill, and thank you, Chairwoman Selena Babat. All right, members, with nothing further on our bill calendar, we now move down to item number 17, miscellaneous business. Recognize Representative Manglonia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And just a quick one. I know it didn't make the agenda, but I just wanted to inform the House that the Representative Joel Camacho and Representative Karina Magofnia have graciously accepted the invitation to be part of the Ways and Means Committee. And thanks to the kind floor leader for allowing or Representative Magofnia to fill in for his seat based on her expansive knowledge in the areas of budget and finance. And therefore, I also delegated Representative Karina to act to vice chair of the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Manglonia, and congratulations on your vice, Representative Corina Magofnia. Any other under miscellaneous business? Recognize Representative Joel Camacho.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just to reiterate, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for accepting me into the committee. I will do the best I can, with my knowledge and experience, to help the committee in their future deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Joel. Any further under miscellaneous business? Ready? We now move down to item number 18, announcements. None? Ready? Okay, I now recognize the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'll offer a motion to adjourn subject to the call of the chair. So moved.
Second.
A motion has been made by the floor leader for adjournment, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? Ready? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, stay. The ayes have it. The session's hereby adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.